in the late 2010, Mr. Rawlings was designated as a coordinator, regional integration for Caribbean region with oversight of implementations of ICA's strategies for agricultural development in the region, as well as for coordination of ICA's technical support for regional integration projects, programs, and initiatives until 2017. Mr. Rawlings holds a Bachelor's of Science degree in General Agriculture from the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine's campus, Trinidad and Tobago, a Master's in Agricultural Economics with distinction from Way College, University of London, England. Mr. Rawlings also possesses a wealth of technical and managerial experience and has authorized many research, working papers, and subsector reviews and analysis, negotiating briefs, policy positions, and presentations on agricultural, economics, commodities, trade policy, negotiations, food and nutrition security, external trade, and economic-related matters. Mr. O'Brien Blanford. Mr. O'Brien Blanford is a national farmer in the northeast region of the island of Dominica in a small village of Concord. Currently works at the Cocoa Villa Eco Farms, where the implementation of natural farming techniques have revolutionized the agricultural systems and solved major agricultural issues, threats, while simultaneously regenerating natural environments and increasing farm productivity. Their business is also a strong advocate for food security, where they turn local products like banana and breadfruit into flours and breads. This is supplied to the local community. He is a current member of NIA and working to help other young farmers renew their passion in agriculture while learning how to do so in a more productive and sustainable way. Ms. Bevon Charles. Ms. Bevon Charles is a visionary leader and a trailblazer from Grenada. Renowned for her pioneering work in sustainable agriculture and community development. As a founder of Akita Farms, Bevon is revolutionizing agriculture by integrating cutting-edge technology and eco-friendly agricultural practices to empower local farmers and drive economic growth. Her commitment to transforming food systems is creating sustainable and a prosperous future for commodities in Grenada and beyond. With a deep-rooted passion for agriculture, Bevon's journey begins in the heart of Grenada, where agriculture and small businesses are the backbones of livelihoods. Her diverse skill set in international business and trade, AI technology, and sustainable land management fuels her innovative approach to agriculture. As a creator of Akita Grow, a fintech platform providing microloans to small-scale farms, Bevon is breaking down financial barriers and promoting financial inclusion, food security, and gender equality. Beyond her work in agriculture, Bevon is dedicated to advocating for gender equalities and youth empowerment. She is the Grenadian representative of the Caribbean Development Bank's Future Leaders Network, a USAID Council ambassador, and the country coordinator for the Commonwealth Youth Climate Network. Honorable Minister Roland Royer, Minister of Agriculture, Forestry, Fisheries, Rural Transformation, Industry, and Labor. Honorable Minister Roland Royer is a past member of NIA. Between the years 2012 to 2017, the Honorable Minister has worked as a technical officer / project manager for Dominican Bureau of Standards. From 2017 to 2019, he has worked as a chief technical officer for the Ministry of Tourism, International Support, Maritime Initiatives. 2019 to 2020, Minister of Tourism, International Transport, Maritime Initiatives, and Permanent Secretary. 2020 to 2022, the Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Public Works and Digital Economy. 2002 to present, he serves as the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy. The structure for this panel.
Before we continue, Minister, I must apologize for this. And
okay. The panel structure. Each of the panelists mentioned will be given 10 minutes to answer a guiding question. And afterwards, after each member answers this question, members of the audience will ask them questions towards the end. Honorable Minister Roland Royer, the future of the agriculture in the region is dependent on youth uptaking the mantle. Can you, from your vantage point, advise us on how you or your fellow ministers could encourage or facilitate youth participation in agriculture?
Thank you for your question. Good afternoon, everybody. And let me recognize my colleagues on here table. And just to get it correct, Ministry of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy. I suspect Mr. Favre had some other ministry for some other island. Yeah, but Dominica, that's what we said. Thank you for that. Okay, as you said in your, well, bio, I don't know if it's a link to give it to you, but I was a founding member of NAYA, which is National Association of Youth in Agriculture. We did that in 2003. Very vibrant during that time. We had some very active years, achieved quite a bit of stuff during that period. But after we transitioned into other responsibilities and moved on, there was no continuity. So the activeness of NAYA kind of dwindled. So we relaunched again last year when I became minister in 2022. So of March 30th last year, we relaunched NAYA, but giving it a more entrepreneurship slant to encourage young persons to invest in agriculture, looking at it as a business. But having said that, now I'm in policy, serving now as the Minister of Agriculture, Fisheries, Blue and Green Economy. I'm seeing it from a different vantage point. So as a farmer myself, was once a youth, I could have identified with most of the issues that you're facing with. So being on both sides, I think I may be able to answer your question appropriately. Let's hope so. So as policy, and I can speak to Dominica, I'm not too sure how it is done in other member states of OECS. The first thing we would promote is education and training. I think that's critical. In Dominica, we do not have an agricultural program as part of the curriculum in primary schools. That is something we're speaking with the Ministry of Education to see how we can revise the curriculum to make it something official into the teachings at the primary school. But what we do as a ministry, and even the 4-H clubs as well, we encourage agricultural practicals at the primary schools to see how we can introduce the kids at primary schools to learn farming and to be part of their daily lives. And of course, we tie that into the inter-school feeding program so that the schools can be self-sufficient. So in terms of policy, that's where we're looking at. Training in primary schools. And we also find that the curriculum at the secondary school level as well is kind of deficient, not too much focus on practical agriculture and agriculture that's relevant to the current times. So as a ministry, we're working closely with education to see how we can sort this out. Still in training, I think vocational training is very critical. I'm one of the graduates from Eastern Caribbean Institute of Agriculture and Forestry. Mr. Stevens, who is our technical officer for extension, he's one as well. So what we find over the years, um, particularly the young extension officers, when they come out from the state college or even directly from university, um, the practical and the technical competence that we expect as frontline officers is kind of lacking. I'm saying that to say AKF was a school in the region based in Trinidad that was focused on training young persons to be farmers and to be extension officers. So that's something, again, that we see that's kind of deficient, and we're trying to move into the direction to see if we can bring that vocational aspect to agriculture, more hands-on practice in the field of agriculture to ensure that our farmers are being trained properly and that they can be disseminated with the appropriate technology, and of course, persons coming out from there can also be farmers as well. So that's for education. Issues to be addressed also, we can look at the access to resources. As a young farmer, I was fortunate to have family land where I could access and do my farming. But many young farmers do not have access to appropriate lands. And that's an issue that we are being faced with at the ministry, and we get requests daily from young farmers to identify where lands are, or if the ministry can lead them to areas where they can cultivate. So we are in discussions with the Ministry of Lands to do what we call a land bank, identify state-owned lands that are conducive for farming, and have them in a pool, so when young farmers can or request for lands, we'll be able to direct them and assist them to get lands. Still on access to resources, we can speak to available financing. When I stepped in, I heard a young farmer spoke to the monies are made available, but to get the monies, it's kind of onerous sometimes and difficult to get that. In Dominica, we kind of fortunate, I can say that, not as I'm a politician, but we have placed $28 million at the aid bank at a 3.5% interest rate for entrepreneurs, not just for agriculture, but you could be an entrepreneur in tourism as well. A great percentage of that went to agriculture, but the handle that we did not have fully on it is the conditions on which it has been on lend to the client. So that's something I think that needs revision to make the financing a bit more accessible to young persons, because we understand that you're starting off and you may not have the collateral security or the other requirements that the banks are asking for to access these loans. Going quickly, mentorship program, I think that should be strong. One of the points that we as policymakers should put on the front burner. I was fortunate enough, myself and our ICA rep, Anthony Cyril, to be part of what we call the Young Leaders in Agriculture program that is spearheaded by ICA. I spent some time in Costa Rica in 2010. I think Tony did his own in Nebraska, where we would meet young farmers across the hemisphere for 3 weeks and be trained and discuss, be exposed to the technologies and be mentored by successful agricultural professionals around the world. And what it did to us, it enabled us to maintain and remain in that field. And of course, you can see where I'm sitting today. And Tony is the next example where he's sitting today. So that was very useful. So we need to have a more structured mentorship program. And I wish ICA could bring it back on board. And maybe the OECS Commission can try to influence that as well. I think we need to promote agri-entrepreneurship. Having a standard background, working for a while at the Dominica Bureau of Standards, I was exposed to a lot of persons who add value to agricultural produce. And one of the issues we have is, or we had, is the environment in which they are processing the raw commodities, which is not conducive for, in terms of food safety and good manufacturing practices. But they now wouldn't have the capital or even the space to invest in a proper facility. So we're saying, as policy, why can't we organize some commercial kitchens or have some small micro processing facilities The specialized lines throughout the countries where persons can access to add value to their commodity. That have many benefits. You will be operating in a certified facility. You'll have persons that are trained in agribusiness, and of course the necessary biotechnology and chemistry that can test and assist you in labeling and standardization, etc. So when your product leaves that facility, you'll have a wholesome product that's marketable and that can be more competitive. So these are projects, as I speak, that we are working on to see how we can lend support to young persons. The other issues, which are very common, and is not just for young farmers, we have issues of improved infrastructure that we're working on as well. But finally, I think we need to encourage young persons to remain in the sector, and we must design a way where we can award and recognize them so they'll feel they're in a field or in a sector that's merited and that will encourage them to remain in it. We started doing that as our FAO annual Farmers Recognition Award ceremony every year. We started last year and we'll continue this year on World Foods Day, where we award the Farmer of the Year in Dominica. But I suspect we may have to add more awards as it pertains to young farmers so that we could have a greater catchment of the subsectors within the sector. So with that, I will stop and have you ask for the questions. Thank you so much.
The next guiding question is for Ms. Tamisha James. You are a member of St. Vincent's and the Grenadines Prime Ministerial Youth Advisory Council. Can you tell us what, in your opinion, are the governance issues or priorities of youth of St. Vincent and the Grenadines with regards to agricultural sector?
Good afternoon, everyone. Protocol has been established, but before I answer my question, I would like to give a brief history about agriculture in St. Vincent. Due to the island volcanic nature, the soils found in St. Vincent is rich in nutrients, making it ideal for agriculture. In the past, SPGs relied heavily on agriculture, with banana being the #1 exported produce. The agriculture plays an important part in the economic life of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, as it contributes to the country's GDP, provides employment, on foreign exchange, provides food for the tourism sector, and also provides food and nutrition security for the population. Over the last 2 years, the agriculture sector's contribution to the GDP has been declining due to its supply side problems, the inability to meet market requirements, the aging population of farmers, and the lack of interest in youth. However, studies have shown that the studying of agricultural science in school and the incoming generation changing the nature of farming in SPG were the top-ranked reasons for youths considering a future in agriculture. However, there are governance issues that may hinder or deter youth of SPGs to pursue a career in agriculture. These issues include lack of capital. Many young people in St. Vincent do not have the sufficient money or finance to start a farm. Some youth cannot afford to buy certain items in large quantities, such as seeds, fertilizers, and pesticides. Also, many aspiring agro-processors, they do not have the sufficient fund to buy the machine and the tools that is necessary to start their agro-processing business. Another issue is the lack of financial support from investment and financial institutions. Access to financial and access to fundings and financial support from banks, credit unions, and other cooperatives are very hard for young farmers to obtain. Reason being, banks think that farming is a big risk, so they do not want to invest or grant loans for these farmers. Another key issue is the limited access to land and resources. This is a prime issue for aspiring farmers. Not all farmers have the privilege of getting land as gift from their parents or family. Many youths face the challenges of acquiring land due to the high costs. And this is, and they do not have the sufficient funds to buy this land, and they do not have collaterals, so have for them to apply for any small loans from the bank. Another issue is the lack of training opportunities. There are little to no training programs and workshop opportunities for youth to attend to learn and acquire different modern agriculture skills, such as the usage of modern machinery, packaging, quality control, hydroponic, food security, vertical farming, aquaponics, and even agro-processing. Another issue is the lack of modernization and innovation technologies. There are not much modern technology options for the youth. Traditional farming is still the dominant agriculture type practice in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Many youths are not interested in this type of practice because they deem it as a very hard work, and it is for the uneducated, and it is for old people. Well, my final point is the lack of youth representation and participation in decision and policy making. Oftentimes, when ministers have their meetings, youth are left out of the decision and policy making, although the decisions are supposed to benefit us youths. We do not get the opportunity to express ourselves and be a part of the decision making. I thank you.
The next guiding question is for Dr. Renata Clark. How has FAO worked and continue to work to encourage the youth in the region with regards to, first of all, addressing governance structures, matters, issues which would impact youth involvement in the agricultural sector? Yeah, and continue to work.
I'm going to cheat a bit because there is something that I wanted to say after hearing the introductions this morning. You know, we came in with an idea of what it is we want to say about enabling youth. And then, you know, I listened to you all. It was uplifting. I mean, some of you were downright inspiring. Definitely very refreshing. I have to remind myself, however, that you are by definition a minority. We keep hearing about aging farmers, so I can't be fooled into thinking that you represent the standard. You are above the standard, but nonetheless, I found it exciting. And a little bit the reflection that the Director General of the OECS Commission made, you know, it made me start thinking, how can we be more effective and targeted at meeting your needs, those varied needs? And the DG pointed you to OECS resources. I'm thinking much more fluidly, and first of all, I would say the mere opportunity to hear you, organized by the ministry here and the OECS, is already part of an enabling environment for youth, that we hear, that we are listening. Fluidly, I mean, I'm regularly in touch with the ministerial structures in the OECS countries. There are some of you that it would seem have come across problems or technological problems. I would like a steady way that these sorts of questions or problems roll back up to your technical support structures, FAO, IECA, CARDI, and in informal ways, even outside of project structures, we find ways that we could respond. Not only to questions, because some of you didn't have questions, but some of you are obviously moving ahead with your circular economy farms. And I'm thinking, wouldn't it be interesting if you did have other experts visiting, perhaps giving you ideas, things you hadn't thought of? You know, what does it hurt me to add one day onto an expert's mission if I knew that there were one or two farms that perhaps wanted this sort of guidance? So for me, and I'm sorry for my my dear friend Ryan Anselm, because I'm going to ask, how do we roll up these questions and opportunities in a way that we can practically just make it part of our normal way of doing business, reaching out to the leading youth farmers, while not forgetting the lagging potential youth farmers? That's another question. But to keep your momentum going, because really, some of you were truly amazing. Coming back to the more specific question about what does FAO do to support, well, governance. Again, I'm going to cheat a little bit. Yes, we do a lot of work around governance. The whole idea of how do you enable youth? How do you attract youth to agriculture? Upstairs between the break, we were chatting, AICA and FAO, and it was, you know, we all sort of converged on the same basic thing. Young people need to understand that they can make a livelihood from agriculture, you know, and we haven't been doing a good enough job in convincing people of that. You know it. Several of you were born into agriculture or have the passion and have been driven and have found out for yourself that it can pay. But there are many others who think that, no, don't want that. That's hard work. It's not good enough. So we are obviously not telling our story well enough. And our story analytically, it's not platitudes about the importance of farming are not enough. We do have to be able to provide business cases. If you do this, if you run a business like this, this is what you can do. And we have not done a good enough job in putting together these stories. The Caribbean is notoriously weak in terms of data and analytics around agriculture. So collectively, we need to get better. And I can sneak back and get closer to my question. It is these analytics and this understanding that is at the basis of good policy. And it is policy that is at the basis of good governance. So nothing comes by magic. There's no, you know, it is hard work in understanding the situation, understanding the constraints, and understanding what are our options for acting, what are the trade-offs, what are the costs. And of course, this needs to be done. I repeat, it was mind-blowing for me today. This sort of exchange is important in decision shaping. You know, an earlier speaker said youth want to be involved in decision making. I'm not quite sure what that means because there's a role, but certainly discussions like this shape decisions, change our understanding, change the way we make our choices. And this is an important phase of decision shaping. Do I have time left? A couple minutes. Maybe I do want to touch on the issue of technology. And it's not all about technology. In fact, we heard earlier this afternoon from Minister Cozier the issue of traditional knowledge, understanding the appropriateness and marrying traditional knowledge with new science and knowledge to come up with the optimal solutions. But we are spending a lot of time, several of the agencies, including FAO, in trying to understand how new technologies can deliver a more productive agriculture. And ultimately, this is part of that famous business case. How can you produce more efficiently, therefore use fewer resources and get a bigger output? But we have to make sure that the technologies are accessible to you in various ways, whether it is, and several people have spoken to finance, access to finance. How do we figure out the right terms to make this accessible? Our role, we're not a financing agency, our role is technical, and what we've been trying to do is bridge the knowledge and understanding gap. In other words, training of the financial institutions, but providing that technical support and that confidence from the provider of funds to the beneficiary that you do have technical support from FAO. You know what you're doing. We are here to make sure you make the right choices in your investment and in the implementation of your projects. So we are working increasingly with financing institutions to bridge that gap and in that way de-risk the investment of the development banks. But we're also experimenting more with private sector actors to shape investment products to try to attract money. Us, along with many others, hopefully during the Caribbean Week of Agriculture, we'll have I know that the CARICOM has a whole session on finance and investing, so we'll see what those efforts are, how they're shaping up and how they're meeting your needs. One last comment in relation to access to land, because several of you have mentioned it, and I was chatting about it with my colleague, and it's one of you mentioned it as well. You can't plan your investment in farming if you're uncertain as to how long you will be or will have access, and it is a discussion we're having with several governments across the OECS, the structuring of land banks. There are many sensitive issues around, well, with the crown lands it's easier, but how do we integrate private lands into land banks? So just to let you know, these are discussions that are ongoing, and it is part of that famous enabling environment. How can we get youth into farming if they don't have land to farm on? My real final comment is a little bit of a warning, because it's not just about the land banks. In every country in the Caribbean that I've been in, there's this constant grumble in ministries of agriculture about land zoning policies, agricultural land coming out of agriculture. So it is something that we need to take seriously. And I think that part of the answer is coming up with convincing and holistic discussions about the value of agriculture. And this is something maybe collectively we can build better arguments.
The next question is for Ms. Bevan Charles. You can be described as a successful and progressive agro-entrepreneur. Can you briefly describe your experience regarding governance and decision-making of youth in agricultural sector? And if possible, discuss means of improving your role or the role of youth in this process.
Thank you for that question, and again, good afternoon to everyone. I want to tackle this question in a different setting. I'm a disruptor by nature, so forgive me. And I want you to imagine this, a 14-year-old boy from an indigenous community in Dominica. And he's sitting here at this table, and he says, I lost my grandmother a month ago, and she died at the age of 110. But for the past 10 generations, his community and his tribe have been feeding and living off of this corn, right? And whether it rains, whether it is dry season, the corn flourishes. This has sustained his people for 10 generations. Now, in this setting, we would have applauded him. There have been some media coverage to his tribe to see them in action, and that's it. What I envision is this. He comes to a place, and when he comes there, there will be research done on that corn. And in that research, it finds out that that particular corn, and I can relate it back to Caricom Grenada, has a particular enzyme that is not found anywhere in the world. That's why it is resistant, right? Oh, sorry. That's why it is resistant. But now his community has a gem, because that corn can now be planted across the Caribbean region to help with our food insecurity, help with our poultry and feeding our animals, right? But also empowers his tribe to create their own space, creating their own policies and their own research, because we want to know where this corn came from and how far back in history we can trace its origin. Research is important. But that space is where he comes, also collect that data. Whether it is the corn, whether it's the fisheries, where we know not to fish or where to fish, why the sorghum is coming up where it is, and how can we create a carbon sink. Data is important, but we have it scattered all over the Caribbean region, and we're all working in silos. So we're talking about policy, we're talking about governance, but our youths are not there to make the influence that is needed. We are fortunate today that we are in this space, that we were selected to be here to represent our individual communities and countries. But there are a large number of our youths across the Caribbean region who are doing amazing things, and they're not in the spaces, their voices are not heard, and they are the ones who are feeding our communities. How then do we bring them to the table? And I'm challenging here Dr. Jules. Allow this group to be an advisory council. Let us be the bridge between our communities and our youth, because we represent them, they represent us. We know the issues that they are facing, the issue of financing, the issues of accessing land, because you're starting off 21 years old, you have no security, you can't get no land, no bank. And if your grandfather fortunately has land, perhaps he gives you that land. But majority of us farmers starting off fresh, we have to start from scratch. We are the bridge now to represent people like you and me. I never had representation when I first started on agriculture. There were no young women involved in agriculture at the time. It's male-dominated. And I had to put myself in roles and in positions so my voice can be heard. So it's not just about policies. We have to be there when the decisions are being made. When the government comes up with a new program, it has to be youth-specific and youth-targeted. Because a lot of times they make projects and we are not included in it, and it doesn't benefit or solve the needs or the issues that we are trying to solve. And they talk about training. I believe we are overtrained. But there's still a lot of youth in our region who don't have access to those trainings. There are still barriers. So how then do we create a space where those barriers are overcome? It has nothing to do with policy. It has to do with creating a space. It doesn't matter if you come from Dominica, Grenada, St. Vincent, or Montserrat, or male or female, young or old, whether you have money or education, that space is there to help you. Take an idea from here, a passion that you have. There is research done. People, experts from FAO and ECA, that's their role. To give us the technical support that is needed, to take that idea and create prototypes. Something that is tangible that could be sold, and not sold in our own space in the Caribbean region, but globally. Born in the Caribbean, but solving global issues, that's the way I see it. Thank you.
The next question is for Mr. Rollins. ICA has had a long history supporting organizations and groups in the region. What, in your opinion, are the critical governance issues impacting them in the agricultural sector?
Thank you, Madam Moderator. A pleasant good afternoon to you all. And let me start by saying how pleased ICA is to be part of this very important Youth in Agriculture Symposium. And I want to commend the OECS, Dr. Jules and his team, and Minister Royer for pulling this activity together. I recall very clearly being in the ministerial meeting in Grenada when ministers agreed that there was a need for a strong program in the OECS for youth engagement. And this is indeed a very critical first step in the process. And I do hope that this is but one step in what will be an ongoing process to really engage young people in agriculture across the OECS. And ICA stands ready and rearing to go to support this process. As the minister indicated, I mean, ICA has had an unparalleled involvement in supporting youth in agriculture in the Caribbean region. I don't say that to boast, but I say that that is a fact. ICA has had youth leadership programs. We established the Caribbean Agriculture Forum for Youth in 2004, 20 years ago, with national chapters such as NAYA and Dominica that would have produced the minister, other leaders across the Caribbean region. And we have since been actively involved in so many programs, establishing youth farms, helping out the primary and secondary schools with school gardens, working and supporting the national chapters. And I want to share some history, because sometimes you need to go back to understand where we have come from. We are not starting from scratch. We had a Caribbean Agriculture Forum for Youth with national chapters, and there was something called the Alliance for Agriculture and the Rural Milieu. Some people in this room that are old enough would know that during the Caribbean Week of Agriculture every year, ministers of agriculture, representatives of the youth organizations, representatives of the women organizations, representatives of the private sector in agriculture would sit together and discuss the development of agriculture in the Caribbean region. And the youth had a voice and a place at that table through the Caribbean Agriculture Forum for Youth. Over the years, CAFE, as it's known, became relatively dormant, and a number of the national chapters have no longer been operating. So that one of the first things that we need to address is building back viable and sustainable youth organizations in agriculture in the respective countries. I think that's one of the first and immediate steps, and I know Dominica is already on the way with bringing back NAYA. ICA is supporting St. Lucia with the bringing back the St. Lucia Agriculture Forum for Youth, because we believe that it's only through viable organizations that the youth will have a place at the table to be able to influence policy, influence decision-making, and their voices to be heard. So that is the first point I really want to make very, very clearly in terms of bringing back those national organizations. And I'm not speaking about heavy organizations that are going to be very difficult to manage. Nimble, new generation organizations that allow for the focus on youth engagement. The next thing I want to suggest, and I discussed this with the minister up to today, that we don't need to bring back a CAFE, a Caribbean Agriculture Forum for Youth, but I believe the OECS needs to establish its own agriculture forum for youth based on national chapters in the countries. So I'm calling for the establishment of an OECS Youth in Agriculture or Agriculture Forum, where the young people in the OECS representing the various countries involved will represent a core that can now engage at all levels, and hopefully they will be participating in the Ministers of Agriculture's meetings at the OECS level, so that they will be there at the table. The issue of, and I know a number of people touched on this issue of incentives, support programs, policies. Dr. Clark spoke about the issue of land. I think we all agree that there's a need for differentiated strategies and policies. We cannot allow the general strategies to address the issue of youth. There must be targeted programs and incentives and policies that allow young people to benefit and have access to all the resources we speak about, whether it be land resources, access to financing, access to technology, capital, whatever they will need, because they will need that push to get them. And at the same time, we need to remove the disincentives to young people getting into business. We need to have one-stop places where young people can go and get all the business support services they need to get their businesses up and running. We cannot leave it up to general systems to work for the young people. We need to have it targeted, and I agree with the last speaker, it has to be very, very focused and differentiated for young people. I also want to make reference to the issue of the opportunities for young people in agriculture. I think sometimes we don't recognize that there are so many areas along the value chain that you can position yourselves. It's not just production or even processing or marketing. There are so many services that you can provide as young people, whether it be from packaging design to so many things that you can do. Merchandising, aggregating products, packaging, whatever it is. There are a range of services you can provide along the entire value chain. So yes, you will have those who will want to farm. You will have those who will want to do processing, but there's so many other opportunities. And one of the areas that we've been seeing is that very often we don't have proper intermediaries in place in many of the countries that allow for market coordination. In other words, you have farmers producing all over the place. We talk about opportunities in the tourism sector, but there's nobody coordinating and consolidating that production. I know Dunstan DeMille has been doing a great job at Massey. But if we could have other young people getting involved in consolidating, aggregating, organizing, and coordinating production to meet markets, that is a tremendous opportunity that exists. And I believe that this is something that many young people need to look at. So it's not just about farming, it's also about getting involved in those other areas. Before I close, I want to also indicate that we need to promote a number of the successful models we have in the OECS and beyond. We have models. Today, the minister was speaking about the HOOPS program, helping out our primary and secondary schools program. That's in Dominica. We have the same program in St. Lucia. Maybe we could have a HOOPS program for the entire OECS, where we get into those schools, we work with the 4-H leaders, and we get to promote and engage young people from primary level into the opportunities of agriculture, so that we have them being nurtured from a very young age. So we need to look at these models. And there are models outside the OECS. Barbados has, through ICA, has a very successful Barbados Youth Farm program that they run every year. We've had people coming in from Antigua and other countries to participate in that youth program, youth farm program, very practical, hands-on program. And we need to promote more of these programs across the OECS. So we need to look at the models, and we need to promote and those models across the region. I encourage all of you, and I was very heartened to listen to the interventions. Clearly, there's a lot of innovation, there's a lot of creativity, and there's some excellent ideas and products and things you're already doing. We could have seen this from the exhibition today. We stand available to support you. And I say that on behalf of ICA, but I'm sure we have other institutions that are here to support you. I encourage you to contact our ICA offices in the various ECS countries. We have offices in each country, the 6 countries for which we are present. Feel free to contact our offices, engage our staff, and to see how we could work with you to support you in your business activities. Because we are here to lend that support. And we have not just the backup of our offices, but we have the backup of our headquarters and our experiences across the entire hemisphere. So I just want to close by saying that I believe that this is an opportunity, this activity. I encourage you to participate and allow us to come up with some concrete steps that we can take that will allow the OECS fast strategy, which is the key strategy we are promoting now, to be really underpinned by active engagement and participation of the youth. We see this as a key component of the OECS fast strategy. I think the ministers recognize this. And I'm just calling on all involved to let us work together to carry this process to the next stage, where we actually get young people organized, working together, and being able to benefit from the various services and support systems that we have available for them. Thank you very much for your attention.
The last question is for Mr. O'Brien Blanford. Your organization has had a successful history since inception, including nurturing notable figures such as the current Minister of Agriculture. Can you tell us what is NIA's strategy with regards to engaging its members on governance issues?
Good afternoon again to everybody here. And I'd like to say it's my privilege to not just represent myself, but to represent NAYA as an organization in Dominica, which is trying its best to reach out to the youth and be a voice for the youth themselves. If you look to my right on this side, most of our members from Dominica are also part of that group, NAYA, or National Association for Youth in Agriculture. And I think our structure, and I say our as a current member who has been recently updated as to how we used to function and how we carried out some of the stuff that we used to do. But also something like this can be utilized or implemented in other Caribbean countries, because I recognize, or one of the things that we have recognized also, is that there is this gap between our regional institutions, our government, and our youth. Between the government and the youth, we need to have something in place that the youth can go to, get their voices heard, and then they can go through the ministries, and the ministries go to the regional organizations. So we have that full chain where we have everybody involved, and especially the youth as well. So as to how NAYA used to operate, and is currently operating right now, because as Minister Roy mentioned, we relaunched NAYA recently, and we are getting back not just our pool of former experience, but also our pool of recent experience and recent youth and their innovations and their way of doing things that has proven to be successful. So NAYA has a lot of former members in key positions in the agriculture sector. We have a few of them regionally in the Caribbean Development Bank, and also in CrossQ. And we also have former members of NAYA in key positions of government as well as national institutions in Dominica. Now, when NAYA used to function before, those people never got to those positions yet. But, however, because of how well NAYA functioned, they were able to get into strategic locations that caused them to be able to do well themselves. So what we are seeing is, or one of our key issues, like we have all mentioned, is that continuity. Because of the high demands for our own personal lives, for work and everything else, it was not set up where the youth were continually brought in, trained, and by the time our former members were able to leave, we did not have already trained youth who were able to carry out their functions that they were supposed to. So one of the things that we need to do with these organizations, when we do set them up, which is like our former speaker was saying, we do not need to have anything extravagant or big. We need to have something simple, effective, and something that we have going on regularly. So that will make sure that the voices of the youth are heard consistently all the time. We meet the current demands and the current issues, and then that organization can continue to function as well. But some of the things that NAYA used to do, which I will mention, is we would have continued to train the youth also. So youth trainings, we'd have stuff like training camps. Also, in terms of the past strategies of NAYA, NAYA itself as an organization had three main functions, and each of them had their unique parts. The first one was the general membership. So you have the executives on the board. They would be in constant collaboration with the other members. They would voice their concerns, and NAYA as a group would meet the concerns of those individuals. And I think something too we have to recognize as small island nations, it's easier for us to get our voices heard as an organization or a group rather than trying to do so individually. And that's something that we have all spoken about over there. I see everybody nodding their heads. And that's one way we can get stuff done. And also, NAYA had a business arm. That business arm's name was Enterprise NAYA, and that carried out all business operations. So being separate from the government, NAYA made sure that they set up something where they can run their own business, they can get their funds pooled together, do stuff within themselves, and those can also benefit themselves individually. And also, NAYA had an education committee, which was very important into training and teaching the youth how they would carry out certain stuff, not just on the farm, as in agricultural practices and stuff to do, but also implementation of different projects and training them in stuff like project writing skills. And you have management of NIA itself. You also have things like policy making, or like we were just recently talking about policy shaping, how it is we shape those policies that we want to see implemented as a group. And this was the members' way of giving their voice and giving their issues and getting those policies implemented. And NIA also took advantage of media, so social media such as Facebook, Instagram, and those things. And also the local radio stations. There was this program that they used to have every Saturday. And that program was a place where the public would have been updated as to what it is NIA is doing currently, how it is that we function, and how it is that they can get themselves involved. So some of those things proved very, very important, and it strengthened NIA's core also. But I think our main issue right now is not that NIA was not functioning, is that NIA did not have established continuity. So as a lesson going forward to the other islands implementing their own small organizations that can bridge the gap between the individuals and the ministries, what we encouraging them to do is immediately, as soon as it is recognized and it is started, that you also have an integral part to play in training and continuing to find young ones who are interested in agriculture. Like we were mentioning, you start at a very small age, and then you pinpoint a few of those who will be able to pick up the mantle as soon as the former members are ready to leave. So that way you have that continuity going on. So NIA is something that I would like to say, like personally I can see, it is headed in the right direction. A bit of restructuring, a bit of understanding of the current issues that we all face individually. And I like to say individually also because we all have different problems that we face as a group of that organization. However, when we come together and we meet those issues, it is easier for us to help each other integrally and then have those bigger issues dealt with on a higher level. So what I would like to say also is I'd like to encourage not just us as current members of NIA, but those interested in joining as well to get on board. I'd like to say thank you to the former members who were able to help me, and I guess that was a little bit of the training also, to be able to teach us about what we used to do, but also to implement that training and experience and make sure that young people are ready to take up those roles when it is they're ready to leave. So as moving forward, not just for us in Dominica, but also in other OECS countries as well, we don't have to start as big and grand. We have to start with something that is functioning and something that is consistent so that we can continue to meet the challenges as they change, so that we'll always be on the same level with our challenges and sometimes even have some foresight too moving forward.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, from the audience, please feel free to direct any questions that you may have to members of the panelists.
In the interest of time, we will take about 5 questions, and please be brief, Mr.
Mr. DeMille?
Mine are not really questions, but let me thank the moderator and all the panelists. I think a lot came out, and I can sense the intentions, good intentions. Our goal now is how do we get it operational? Because my experience in the region, implementation is one of the things that have really held us back. And I think we are well intended, so I think we need to have a lot of action, right? And follow-ups. But one of the things, I go to a lot of forums all over the region, but one of the things I keep noticing, why we don't bring the telecommunication companies here, because we want connectivity, we want information flow. I think they are a good link to the puzzle, a good piece of the puzzle for us. So I think we need to bring them. They may have something to offer to help us on that journey. Minister, I heard you speak about the um, getting the curriculum, agriculture and the curriculum. I also want to tell you, in the interest of the CARICOM dietary guidelines, also think of your policy, your school feeding policy, for some of that healthy food to feed into it. Dr. Clark, I heard you spoke about how we need to bring that information out. Let me tell you, anytime you have some time, go to the Massey website. There's a program Because We Care. You'll see those things about some of our farmers, our suppliers, how they're giving this story. And we just launched a program with the Taiwanese mission on QR codes. So right now, there are some of our suppliers after COVID, that develop new items. We put a QR code for them. When somebody go to the store, when they scan that, they get that farmer story. And they could see where it was produced, how it was produced, and there's a lot of information that's there. So you could go to the Massey website and see it yourself. And we try to meet with our farmers every single year so we could set the trend. So my advice would be, if we're doing things, let's not just stay in the background. Let's get back to the people, whether it's through, we do Zoom meetings or what, and let's keep setting the trend. That's how we'll keep the interest. Thank you, but very good.
All right, good day again, everybody. Well, again, my name is Devon Vidal, and there were 2 points I just wanted to touch on, and I want to again congratulate the panelists on the way you all approach the questions. There's one point on farm banks. I know that the USVI has a program because an aunt and uncle of mine, they are part of that program in St. Croix. So I don't know if we can maybe tap into that area of the Caribbean to see what they do and see how we can implement it on our side. So in St. Croix, to be exact, I know for sure. And something else, I went to primary school in the 90s, right? So I went to the Salisbury Primary School, and I remember at that time there was a JSP program, which was very, very vibrant. At that time, my father was also the principal, Britain Vidal. And we had poultry production, the agriculture sector was booming at the time, So I don't know if we can, I just talk about primary schools, we can maybe investigate, for example, the Salisbury Primary School at the time, back in the 90s, what were they doing for the GSP program and the lower school that was working, and we can try to implement it. Thank you.
Good afternoon again. I have a few, well, as you said, keep it short as possible. I'm going to start with this phrase for young people. You know the parable, the old parable, if you give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. But if you teach him how to fish, you feed him for life. My friend at the end made a point that I like, and it resonates with something I want to say. The perception. From since the start of this morning to now, a gentleman said, I think it's that gentleman in the green said, agriculture has a stigma. It is hard work, hand in ground, hot sun, back breaking. So the youths of today are pulling away from agriculture. If you look on a lot of advertisements or magazines that contains agriculture, what do you see? You see an old woman on a donkey. You see people out in hot sun pulling up grass, pulling up rice paddies. You see the older generation. What about changing the perception of putting the young people in the magazines, using the telecoms or the news networks, or doing commercials, or the ministry advertising young people, putting them in the forefront of new innovative technologies, new sciences, new cultures where agriculture is concerned? if you change the perception of how we see agriculture, of this hard laboring thing, believe me, you will get more people into it. You made mention of starting the education of agriculture in the primary school level. That is a brilliant idea. Antigua and Barbuda has started that. And right now, we have agriculture being taught as, I think we call it K5, but kindergarten for most, coming up through grade 6. And one of the worst things I think CXC did was remove the double award they did from out. It's back, oh, thank God. Because one of the worst things they could have done is to remove that out of the curriculum. When I started agriculture, I did not want to go into agriculture. But a teacher at my secondary school told me, Victor, you have a knack for agriculture, go into agriculture, because I wanted to be a law enforcement officer. And when I entered it, I found a passion for it. I love agriculture, and I love what agriculture can bring. Another thing, just advice or a suggestion, grant funding for persons who are leaving secondary school, grant and scholarship funding directly to the agriculture programs for UTT and UE. I went to ECIAF. It was one of the best courses I have ever taken. It's hands-on. It is theoretical, but mostly hands-on. And when young persons are exposed to that and see a different light in agriculture, they're going to come back with new and brilliant ideas. Believe me, you, Honorable Minister, it will happen. Another thing I would like to touch on quickly, the land policies, the land use policies. I don't know if Dominica has one, but one thing the entire OECS and the Caribbean needs to do is have a land use policy reform. There is something that we are facing in Antigua where the older generation is not letting go of the land, crown land, government land, and there are young people who have ideas, who even have monies, savings that wants to be in agriculture, but it is a fight for the extensionists. Talking from an extension point of view, it is a hassle for extensionists to try to get young people lands, because what happens by the end of the day, these older farmers are taking it political, going to their ministers, going to their representative to get back their lands, and by the end of the day, okay, you give them a period of time to work it and nothing is happening. And it's a recurring thing that we're facing right now, and I'm sure my other islanders are facing it as well. That's just one of many towards the FAO and ECA. Talking from an extensionist point of view again. I know there are a lot, I do commend FAO and ECA for all the programs that they have rolled out throughout the OECS and also in Antigua and Barbuda. But one thing I've realized is that when the different representatives or the different representatives who are placed by your organizations, they usually, I know you guys work hand in hand with the government through the ministry in selecting farmers. But one thing I've noticed is that when farmers are selected, it is overstepped. The reason why we are given the rationale of choosing the farmers, whether it be young or farmers who we see that can do better with the assistance, but it is turned a blind eye to. I don't know how y'all can look into that. I am being honest and straightforward. Now, another thing. Oh, yes, this is one. I've always heard this. This is back to you, Honorable Minister. I'm talking from my experience within the agriculture sector. There have been a lot of times I try my best to help young persons. You don't even have to be young. Once you come with a drive or an idea to do something that can change agriculture, whether it be agrotourism, agribusiness, anything at all, I try my best to help. But what is very discouraging, if I come to you and say, sir, I need a piece of land. I don't have no money. I don't have a plan, but I have the idea and I have the drive. Do you know what is being told to these people? Agriculture is a business. If you don't have the money, you can't get it. How are we supposed to take that? I've seen young people, younger than I am, who came with the drive and always coming to the office every day, to my office, looking for Mr. Wade, looking for this person, and I try my best to help. Do you know how discouraging it is from the people that are high above you, telling them it cannot happen? You yourself, me myself as an extension officer, feel heartbroken that I cannot do anything to help. And Mr. Minister, remember your workers as well. You do have workers who come with the drive. You made mention of some individuals who need to pull their weight, if I'm not mistaken. But what assistance are you giving them? What resources? What remunerations? Let me tell you this. I remember a colleague of mine said this in a meeting a time. We do, as your workers, also face struggles in life. We do have families. We do face mental issues. And we still have to come to work every day to deal with farmers, to deal with people who want a future. What are you doing for us in return? It is not easy out there, Mr. Minister. I am telling you, it is not easy. And I think we need to, not just you, I'm not pointing a finger at you directly, but I think we need to start, as the table had said, we need to start somewhere. And in the end, I will leave with this. What will Dominica do in leading the charge? Because this is the first. I would love to see many more. I would love to send persons who are in high school or secondary school, even college, to this one day. My goal one is to become the Minister of Agriculture as well. By me learning this, I will know what to do when the time comes. So this is my challenge to you, to FAO.
Honorable Minister,
Sorry.
can you answer his question? In the interest of time, we need to wrap up.
Sorry. I would just like to know, what are you guys doing? You will see, you will listen to us, you know. But by the end of the day, we need to see the action by the end of the day. That is something I told the last Minister of Agriculture in Antigua and Barbuda. We need to see it. You can come to us and ask us, but after we tell you what will happen. That's all I have to say.
Right.
Thank you.
Right. Great points. Thank you for that. I think it is a round of applause for that. Yeah. Just to inform you too, I was on your side. I was an extensionist as well. That's why I started as an extension officer. So all the issues you mentioned, I went through them as well as an extension officer. And that's why I try my best, being the minister now, to be sensitive, you know, of the issues that the staff faces. And we have been addressing them, and I've been advocating for that over the years, because I know how it is to be an executive officer. So I don't really have to explain too much, but I was in your shoe one day for 12 years, 12 long years, yeah? As a frontline officer as well, yeah. What happens from here? I think it's a good start. As Mr. Rollins said in Grenada when we met as ministers, that was one of our outcomes of the meeting, to place focus on youth in agriculture. And this symposium is the start of that, where we bring bright minds, young leaders in agriculture in Dominica to discuss, spend 3 days discussing, deliberating, and at the end of the third day, you'll bring your proposals and recommendations as to the way forward, which we can use now to develop that roadmap, you know, to pave a way for sustainable agriculture and youth in the region. So the main thing is follow up from here. I'm certain that my team will follow up in Dominica. The commission has its role to play as well, to make sure the notes are being reviewed and the necessary systems and strategies going forward are done and implemented. But it takes a lot. We have to mobilize resources to get everything in action. The OECS Commission is very good at doing that, I must say. But today is just this week is just the beginning, of more to come. What we want to see is coming out from there. You spread the news. Persons from islands that do not have a national chapter of a young farmer association will take the lead, go back and speak to the respective officers or ministries, and initiate that discussion and see how you can form chapters in your islands. I know we have Dominica, I think Grenada, St. Lucia may have, but the other islands may not be that advanced. So it's not just our responsibility, but you as a young leader need to take some responsibility as well. How are you going to bring the news from here to your peers in your islands and form that structure and to be guided by the ministry? One thing I learned being trained very early, extension, and you would know that as well because you're training AKF. Extension don't form group for farmers. Farmers form the group. You facilitate the formation because they must gain that independence. Yeah? So you as young farmers, when you go back to your respective islands, I want to see you take the lead and start the discussion. Every island here may have an ECA representative. ECA is good at that. They've supported us since 2000 and they're still with us. So that's the first step. And the OECS Commission and the Council of Ministers will have to work to create that strategy, that plan. I think at some point we'll reconvene to have it reviewed. It could be via the web, it could be at a physical meeting, and then every island, the commission sign up on it. And then every country now will have the individual action plan to implement the homegrown strategy to better youth involvement in agriculture. That's how I see it, and that's the approach we're going to take in Dominica. But for sure, I can say for Dominica, it will not fall, because we have a strong NIA, and we have some serious officers and a strong ECA and support from FAO. We will get it done. Yeah.
No more questions. Okay.
We'll take two more.
Thank you. All right. I just want to say one thing, like prior planning and preparation prevents poor performance, and I have noticed that issue. There's a question directed to you, Minister. In our country, consistently happening time and time again. As my partner rightly stated, they have an issue with identifying legitimate farmers. When it comes to the distribution of goods and the distributions of funds and everything, it have a serious problem, and I feel that problem need to be rectified in moving forward when dealing with the youth in agriculture at this point, for us not to be deprived of the equal benefits of what is due to us. Because just the reason why I'm bringing this up is that as a young farmer and many other young farmers I know that actually experienced that and been through that, it had a lot of times where assistance was presented to us and we had to cut our time, sacrifice our time, go and get forms, go and do all of these things. And at the end of the day, when you do watch somebody that doesn't have a backyard garden getting 10 grand, and to the young farmers, it's not nothing about money, it's real life, bro. That's what I seen as a citizen, as a young person, and I feeling very, disappointed, you check? And I feel like something have to be done about that issue, because I doesn't hear nobody talking about it. I doesn't hear nobody trying to address the situation. Like, how do you determine a legitimate farmer? We have a farmer produce seller's license, and in my opinion, I feel it are just useless, because they want us to call it a farmer's license, but yet it cannot identify you as a farmer when the time is right for you to be showing your proof that you is a farmer. You know what I mean? So in terms of all that, and one more thing I want to say, that me as a young person that listening the news, the hearings, and like the debate, the budget debate and all of that, and I really have a concern when it comes to the budget and all of those things. Because when it comes to the budget, I don't know, people can really do what they want and thing and whatever they want. Probably not. You know what I mean? But like when it comes to the budget, it have a certain amount of monies that is allocated for certain sectors and certain things. And I feel for the past couple years, I have seen that certain presentations on the accountability of these monies, that all the monies that was allocated to those sectors is not spent entirely in those sectors, and the money just end up just not being there. It just things. So I feel like us as young people at Youth in Agriculture, we need a little bit more, and not even just young people, like people in general, we need a little more transparency and a little more accountability from our leaders to tell us and show us, give us a directive, give us something to show that we don't just trying to come and try to fester no propaganda or nothing or kind of or stuff like that. Make us know what is going on with our money and all of those things. We need to know as young people, and what I tell you, there needs to be corrected. So just let me know if all you have a thing to correct that. You check? Yeah. God.
All right, good afternoon. All right, I've heard these words been mentioned: implementation, action. Now, these are two words that I am very passionate about: implementation and action. I have been to many symposiums before, many presentations, many functions. I've sat across panelists of distinguished personnel such as yourselves. One such session was in 2014, and we had a panelist of distinguished personnel, which included a PS. I'm not going to say who that PS was or from which ministry. And there was an older gentleman. He is a manufacturer. And he mentioned to the PS, 10 years ago, we discussed the same problems that we are discussing right now. That's in 2014. We are in 2024. I'm hearing some of the same issues being mentioned. In 2014, we had youth present at that function. The youth gave the issues and they gave solutions. We are speaking of the inclusion of youths, especially involvement in policy making. The youths are giving their suggestions. We are on the ground. We understand what is going on. We know what is working. My question is, can we hold you accountable? Can we hold you accountable through, in the words of Mr. Rowling, viable organizations such as NIA? Can we come to you 6 months later and say, okay, these are some of the things that you mentioned. What are you doing about them? Where are we? And if there's nothing being done, can we ask why? This is my question.
Director General, do you have a question?
No, you were winding up, right? Okay, so I just wanted to listen, having listened carefully, I wanted to give you all some homework, the youth here. Because we get your point. A lot of these consultations, I've been in them. People talk, we listen, nothing happens. I think what is really important is first to listen more carefully and structure what we hear around solutions. So the task this evening is for each of you, please, to, it can be random, but all the problems that you see in agriculture that affects you as a young person wanting to make a difference there, list them for us, please. It doesn't have to be structured, just list them as they come to mind. And any solutions you have or proposed solutions in relation to those, put it side by side with the problem. Just that document. Before this conference ends, you will get back from us a document that outlines and sort of structures all of that into where we go forward with the Youth in Agriculture program. We have in our youth strategy a tool, a web tool, a mobile tool called what's it called again, guys? The U-Report. Yeah, sorry, U-Report. U-Report, anyone with a cell phone can become a U-Report ambassador, and we do surveys and so on through U-Report. So that is one way of keeping in touch and pulsing different constituencies in terms of their views about things. So in terms of some of the issues you all raise about not being heard, regular consultation through that. The other commitment that we are making to you all tonight, as I said earlier before, this youth in agriculture program is going to be structured. Now, once we have it structured, already Dominica has a structure, you will have a permanent seat at every meeting of ministers of agriculture. Right? Now, don't clap so fast because there are conditions on that, right? It can't be a situation where everybody just come and everybody griping. You have equal responsibilities as the ministers will have, right? So when you come to the table, at any point, I heard the suggestion about having it as an advisory council. We can discuss that some more because I don't believe so much in advisory councils. What we need is representative bodies, right? So whether it is elected by the young people, all the young people who are involved in agriculture, in Dominica, you all have a structure, a national structure. So that structure, working with structures, similar structures from other OECS member states, can then elect an advisory council. But when we come to the ministerials, all of whoever is the top executive of the national bodies should, and that's my suggestion, so it's subject to change, would be like you'll see the president, vice president, 3 persons from the national executive of each national body will then be the OECS Youth and Agriculture Executive. And that body is who will have the right to attend meetings of ministers of agriculture. And you don't have to come here to listen. You can then, among yourselves, you meet. There are issues. It's very easy with Zoom now, no cost in meeting. Pull together your ideas, and you can even say to us, the next meeting of Ministers of Agriculture, we want to put A, B, and C on the agenda. It will be put on the agenda. And you present to the ministers your thoughts, your ideas, but come with concrete things. Don't come to ministers just with a litany of problems. We want solutions from you as it would work for you. Okay? Thanks. So don't forget tonight.
Thank you very much. And let me take the opportunity to thank our moderator, Ms. Janelle Alexander. I think we did a very good job. Let me thank the panel for your time and this brings to a conclusion this panel. A little housekeeping matters. At 7 o'clock there will be a cocktail. I believe it's at
Oh, sorry to interrupt, Lench. So yes, you've all been cordially invited to the Minister's Cocktail happening at 7 p.m. tonight at the Realm. So we will be picked up from the hotel. So you need to be at reception for 6:45 p.m. So you have half an hour to get ready. That's not too bad. In terms of tomorrow, so tomorrow, we start at 9 o'clock at the stadium, so you will be picked up from this is for everyone staying at Fort Young. So it doesn't apply to this group. So for everyone staying at Fort Young, you will be picked up at 8:30 tomorrow morning. So the buses will be there at 8:30 a.m. So let's be at reception for about 8:20 so that we can leave on time. In terms of DG's homework, can we get your, because we do have a workshop on Friday afternoon where we plan to look at the top 5 challenges that you identify and then to have a discussion around the solutions so that we can present those solutions or asks to Minister, to DG, and to the Prime Minister at the closing ceremony. So Tomorrow morning, I will be collecting the homework on the bus and also at the stadium before we start the day's proceedings. So at least bring the first half of the homework, in fact, bring the full homework, actually. So bring the challenges as well as the solutions, and that will feed into the workshop on Friday. Okay, so see you at the Realm at 7 o'clock, the Dominican group, and the wider OECS group meet at reception for 6:45. Thank you very much.